CBS 46 News presents Public Affairs on Peach.
Good morning to you and welcome to Public Affairs on Peach. I'm Kim Passoff. How worried are you about the Zika virus? How worried should you be? During the next half hour, we're talking about it with a panel of experts on Public Affairs on Peach. The Georgia Department of Health tells CBS 46 the state has received $1.2 million from the CDC to fight the virus. So far, no mosquitoes in Georgia have been found to carry the virus, but more than 4 dozen people in Georgia have contracted Zika traveling outside of the country or through sexual contact. That includes 2 pregnant women. One was diagnosed in late May, the other in mid-June. My first guest today is Patrick O'Neill, Director of Health Protection for the Georgia Department of Public Health. Thanks for joining us, and let's start with the most basic question. What is Zika and what are the symptoms?
Zika is a disease that has been with us since the mid-40s, actually, but only recently getting a lot of attention because of increased numbers of cases. Zika is a virus. It's what we call a flavi or a flavivirus. The same family of viruses that cause other diseases such as dengue and chikungunya. It has been getting a lot of attention over the last several months because of a tremendous, virtually now worldwide outbreak. And the great thing that is troubling everyone is that this particular mosquito-borne viral disease has a terrible impact potentially on pregnant women in terms of birth defects for their babies.
Let's talk about that. The microcephaly that's associated with this, with Zika virus, with pregnant women. Babies are being born with abnormally small heads. Does anyone know why, or does that always happen when a pregnant woman is infected with Zika?
Well, let me answer the last part first. No, it does not always happen. We do not at this point really have good data to know how frequently it happens, but we do know that based on what we've seen coming largely out of South America, but in other areas of the world as well, that many women that have Zika infection during pregnancy are giving birth to babies with birth defects, microcephaly being perhaps the worst of those defects, but there are others as well. This particular virus seems to have an affinity for neural tissue, nerve tissue. And because of that, it impacts in a new fetus, for example, where the neural system is growing very, very rapidly. It impacts that system's development tremendously in negative ways. But it doesn't happen all the time. And we don't really know yet how frequently we can expect it to happen. We don't know if it's only coming from this virus alone or if it may be augmented by other cofactors, such as another infection that might occur simultaneously or prior to the Zika infection. There are a lot of unknowns, but a tremendous amount of research is underway, and we hope to have a lot of answers over the next several months.
Okay, and let's talk about Miami. We've seen a neighborhood with a high concentration of the Zika virus there. Explain why to the viewers.
The reason that we're seeing this particular situation in Miami is not unexpected, because Miami has had the type of mosquito that transmits this virus most readily. That mosquito is called the Aedes aegypti mosquito. There is another vector that can carry it as well, the albopictus mosquito, in that same group, but it's probably not as competent a vector as the aegypti. South Florida has had a significant population of the mosquito that is most likely to spread this disease, so it was not really unexpected that this would happen down there. We've seen that this particular mosquito has caused other outbreaks in the past in the Miami area. Chikungunya, dengue are the 2 other diseases that are commonly transmitted by this mosquito, and we've seen relatively small outbreaks of those diseases in the past in South Florida.
How big of a threat is the Zika virus right now to people in Georgia, and should people be taking precautions, wearing mosquito repellent, long sleeves, those sorts of things right now in our state?
I think that there is certainly a risk that we will see local transmission of Zika viral disease in Georgia at some point in time, but I don't think that the risk is really that high. I say that because we have not seen a significant population of the type of mosquito that may spread it. We have identified the aegypti mosquito in an area of Georgia, but in very, very limited numbers. So the ability to spread the disease in Georgia is certainly not going to be as likely as it has been in South Florida, for example. I do think that it's wise for folks in Georgia on a regular basis to take protections against being bitten by mosquitoes, though, because not only do we have to deal with Zika, but there are other things like West Nile virus and Eastern equine encephalitis, which is mosquito transmitted as well, that can happen anytime. So protection against mosquito bites should be a routine for us in Georgia.
And I can tell you from my own backyard, it seems like right now is peak mosquito season. So really right now is the best time to take precautions against those other viruses that you were talking about.
Absolutely.
Okay. And what would you encourage people to do to make sure that they do protect themselves?
I think the most important thing really is something you've already mentioned, and that's using common sense in terms of the way you dress, covering your arms, your legs if at all possible. And that's hard to do in the summertime when it's hot. People want to be in shorts and short sleeve tops. But if at all possible during mosquito season, if you can keep your limbs covered and if you can cover other exposed parts of your body with mosquito repellent, and we're recommending using mosquito repellent with DEET, which is a chemical that will prevent mosquitoes largely from wanting to bite you. And we're suggesting that you only use those preparations that have been registered by the EPA. That's a good guarantee that the strength of the DEET is adequate to minimize the chances of a mosquito bite. We're particularly concerned because here in Georgia we have a tremendously busy airport, as everyone knows. And folks are coming and going all the time from areas of the world where Zika is commonly being transmitted. So even if it weren't the Olympics that we're dealing with right now, we've got folks coming and going from the islands in the Caribbean on a regular basis. And many of our recent travel situations with Zika have actually come out of the Caribbean islands rather than out of Brazil, for example. So I think common precautions, using DEET, using proper clothing to prevent mosquito bites is really important. The other thing that's important is really a matter of reducing the chances of mosquitoes multiplying in your backyard or your front yard or anywhere around your house, because these mosquitoes breed in very small areas of water, just little cups of water or even leaves. So we're recommending folks clean up their yards, get rid of leaves that could gather water during these little pop-up storms we're having. And what we say, tip and toss. Anytime that you get some water in a saucer around one of your plants, for example, tip it over and get rid of the water if possible. If you have water in a bird bath, for example, that you can't tip over, use larvicides. That will not harm the birds, and it will prevent the mosquitoes from multiplying in your bird bath.
Some interesting advice. Patrick O'Neill is going to stay with us to answer Zika questions we've received online when Public Affairs on Peach returns.